Alright everyone, we start off today with the new Bombshell report. It's actually from the New York Times, and I'm wondering why they waited until September 11th to put this out here. Is it to help or to hurt Biden, actually? I don't know. On any other day where there's other shit in the news cycle, 9/11 being a major national holiday for the authoritarians, they like to celebrate it. On any other day, probably the optics would be, they'd be deadened, they'd be dulled, because in the news cycle, it's like Christmas. Everyone's talking about Santa Claus and shit. But on September 11th, with its connections to the war in Afghanistan, of course, Biden being very visible on the day, it could actually maximize the damage. That'd be a rare instance of a journalistic outlet actually doing its job and making sure people know, hey, something really, really crazy just went on not that long ago. Bombshell report. The ISIS target that you heard about that involved 10 kids also getting vaporized, you know, someone loading suspicious stuff into the back of his car and then driving towards the airport. It must have been an incoming terrorist attack, and so brave Biden decided to liquidate that threat, and partially in retaliation for ISIS attacking the Kabul airport and killing 14 U.S. troops and hundreds of Afghans. It turns out that ISIS target was probably a U.S. aid worker, and that the things being loaded into the trunk, it wasn't bombs, it was water and office supplies. So, bringing water to the Kabul airport, whoops, there was a little bit of a logistic failure. Now, first and foremost, before we go once again through the timeline of Biden's numerous mistakes in Afghanistan and the insanity of this report, this should be front page news worldwide right now because of the ramifications. Keep in mind, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment down below with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. I make 2 exclusive videos a day on those sites. They do not go up on YouTube, so make sure to get your full clank each day. Get caffeinated. You can wrap a spoon against your Monster can too. That's alright. By the way, those are energy drinks. I'm thinking about drinking them because I really love caffeine, and like cleaning out the empty cans and just reposing them there. So they may or may not. It's Schrodinger's energy drink. Are they full or are they empty? They're in 2 dimensions on your screen, so you will never know. Anyway, this is nuts. It turns out, and the worst part is that apparently the drone that conducted this strike, they were tailing this vehicle for quite some time. I mean, was it driving erratically or something? Was this dude like ducking through alleyways or some shit, and that's why they took the shot? They've got footage, security footage now of the car being loaded. It doesn't look like it was explosives. Whoops. Yeah, so, and by the way, if you were tailing this vehicle for an excessive period of time, why is it that the shot was only taken when there were a bunch of little kids near the car? Because 10 kids got vaporized in this attack. You'll remember, Biden promised, after ISIS conducted its attacks on the airport, which never would have happened at all had Biden stuck to the initial agreement and told people to get out in a timely fashion instead of pretending, and it was pretense if you match it up with his call with Afghan President Ghani, which had come a month before. He knew the situation was deteriorating, and yet he, on the surface, told people everything's fine, Taliban won't take over the country, everything's hunky-dory, don't worry, we'll get everyone out, blah, blah, blah. He left several hundred Americans in the country and thousands of Afghans that are eligible for potentially going to a safe third country like Qatar. He calls it Qatar, which is funny. That's number one. He screwed up the timeline, causing the problem in the first place. The Taliban would not have been capable of advancing had he stuck to the May 1st withdrawal, because they would not have been able to use the pushback as propaganda against the Afghan government, making it look weak. Joe Biden made the Afghan government look weaker even than it was, demoralizing the troops. There's a reason many of them decided not to even bother fighting the Taliban. When we, by the way, talk about all the military gear left behind in Afghanistan that the Taliban now has, that doesn't usually even count all the small arms, ammo, and shit that the Afghan military directly fielded. A lot of it's just people mention the U.S. gear the U.S. personnel were using that was left at several bases left behind. So they got all sorts of cool toys. They got more military capabilities than most of their neighbors at this point, other than maybe Iran and Pakistan. There's a reason why all those borders are semi-closed at the moment. People are terrified of the situation. Now we find out that he conducted 2 retaliatory strikes supposedly on ISIS. The first one supposedly killed a couple of ISIS planners that were involved in trying to attack the airport. We don't have any confirmation of this. We don't have any further information about it. All we have is Biden's claims. Since he claimed that this killed an ISIS operative, since the White House said, oh, well, yeah, we liquidated a threat coming towards the airport, and we now know that that's not true, wouldn't that cast doubt on the claims about the first drone strike that supposedly killed the ISIS planners that we don't know the names of? Now it turns out that this was a U.S. friendly. This was friendly fire that also killed a bunch of civilians that happened to be standing around when the shot was taken, which is inexplicable. Again, you couldn't have done it at any other moment while you were tailing this vehicle. Oh, well, we got the perfect shot. Oh, what about those school kids over there? Ah, who cares? This is yet just another example of Joe Biden's bungling, and the buck really does stop with him, because he gave the order to retaliate and then did not look into the logistics. Did he personally, by the way, okay this shot to be taken? Well, Mr. President, we got a suspicious vehicle. Yeah, there's a bunch of kids gathered around it, but should we shoot it anyway? Oh yeah, man, I love kids. Go ahead and shoot them up. It's probably what happened. So this is a big mistake. And this is coming again, even the legacy media is talking about it this time. Again, did Biden do anything right? Even the retaliation was botched. It would have been botched even if this, by the way, were an ISIS operative. Because, you killed 10-1 civilians in that particular drone strike. That's worse than even the official average total. Usually 75% of the people that die in U.S. drone strikes overseas are non-combatants, but this was 10-1. That's worse, by the way, than 75%. It's nuts. The entire situation is screwy. And even if it had been an ISIS operative, when you kill civilians, all of their families are more likely to say, fuck the United States. Keep in mind, this is 9/11, so everyone's doing the gung-ho, the Afghan war thing anyway. Again, I'm not sure whether this being released today is good or bad for Joe Biden. Because if you're talking about anyone looking up Afghanistan right now, unless it's buried in the algorithm, which Google I'm sure will do, but not everyone will, they're going to see this. A lot of them are going to be looking up Afghanistan, Taliban, Osama, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and stuff like that, and they're going to see, whoops, it turns out that at least one of the retaliatory strikes Beijing Biden okayed didn't even attack an ISIS target, and I'm really questioning whether the first strike did either. I think they just randomly decided to blow up an outbuilding that happened to have human beings in it, and because they're going to be so macerated, sometimes you're not going to be able to identify the remains, probably they didn't even bother. Are we going to get another report like a week from now, a month from now or something? Oh, those ISIS planners that Beijing Biden said he killed? Well, they weren't ISIS planners. They were actually school teachers. They weren't ISIS planners. It was a couple of Afghan soldiers that were preparing to make their last stand against some ISIS hostiles that were advancing on the position. They were some of the only guys left in Kabul that were willing to fight. Are we going to find that that's the case? Because it always seems to happen like weeks later, right? Like we should have probably gotten this report a while ago. And Biden said, well, what's done is done, but we're out of Afghanistan. It would be so funny if today, when Biden, I'm presuming he's flown to New York, he's in Queens right now, gives his 9/11 bullshit speech in which he talks about the unity that he's not promulgating, patriotism he doesn't have, remembrance that, considering the way his brain works, I think that ship sailed quite a while ago. When he's giving his self-aggrandizing speech where he'll inevitably invoke his dad and his brave son, not the crack smoker that cheated on his other son's widow and with a stripper and got her pregnant, but Beau Biden, rather, that actually did serve with honor. When he's bringing all these things up, it would be so funny if the crowd, which I'm assuming will be sparse due to social distancing and due to people's lack of care about the issue, they'll be too busy watching Trump bloviate over at the boxing match with Evander Holyfield. I'm hoping people boo him and turn their backs. I'm hoping that the NYPD, when his motorcade is coming through, turn their backs on the bastard because of how fucked up everything in his presidency has been, and Afghanistan's just the icing on the cake. Inflation remains well above normal. Joblessness is inching its way up. The federal government is ignoring the Constitution, has been smacked down by the courts twice already, and has set itself up to have that happen yet a third time, with absolute callous disregard to the legal system, the separation of powers, or the limitations on presidential executive orders. This presidency, this asterisk administration, is completely dysfunctional. It would be better to have George W. in charge. I've spent years saying, well, W arguably is, at least in the modern sense, the worst president that we've suffered through. Now, I think that Biden is managing to give him a run for his money. Even George W. didn't screw up this bad. Sure, he got us involved in Afghanistan, but certainly, if we had withdrawn under any of the prior administrations, I think they would have done a better job. Yes, I think Obama would have done a better job. He put in the surge, then he drew things down. Trump had a withdrawal plan all settled in. We didn't have hyperinflation. The joblessness was declining. Things were getting back to normal. And now, ever since Biden has taken office, and I mean taken in the literal sense, as the steward, the asterisk president, everything's gone to hell. Everything. Nothing is better than it was a year ago. Literally nothing. That's about all. Peace out.